Okay, good evening. My name is Barry Logan. I'm the president of the American Academy of Forensic Sciences, and I want to welcome everybody to this evening's webinar. This is the first series of career webinars that AAFS has offered. AAFS is the largest professional forensic science organization in the world. We have over 7,000 members representing 11 different disciplines or sections. And tonight's presentation is by some of the members of the general section. I'd encourage you to go to our website, www.aafs.org, where you can find some information both about the remaining lectures in this series. You can also find links to prior webinars on from the sections of criminalistics, psychiatry and behavioral sciences, engineering sciences that have been delivered over the last few weeks. Tonight's webinar, at the conclusion of this, will also be available through a link on the website for you to go back and look at later if you want to follow up on some of the information that is given. So we're looking forward to our annual meeting coming up in Seattle in February of 2014. There's information about that on our website, as well as a link to the advanced program that will show you a lot of the activities, professional presentations, continuing education workshops, and so on. They're going to be part of our annual meeting, and we encourage you to take a look at that to learn some more about our organization. So with that, I'm pleased to turn you over to our host, Tom Mauriello, and he's going to introduce his section to you. Tom.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Logan. Jeff, did you have any information that you wanted to present before I begin?
I just thought I'd put out the format of tonight's webinar. We'll have a short presentation and then followed by a Q&A section. But feel free to submit your questions in that chat window there to us, and we will answer them throughout the webinar if we can.
Very good. Thank you. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Tom Mauriello. I'm your host, and my co-host is Heather Mazzanti. We are representing the General Section membership. The chair of the General Section is Alan Bohm. Secretary is Claire Shepard, and our director is Julie Howe. I'd like to begin by just giving you a little background about who I am and where I come from. I spent 8 years as a police officer after finishing my graduate work in forensic science. Last year I just retired after 30 years as a special agent with the Department of Defense. Since then I created my own forensic consultant company, Forensic IQ, and now I work for the darker side, the defense side, and I find that to be very enjoyable in doing that. Throughout my 40-year career, 36 of those years, I had a concurrent profession as an adjunct professor at the University of Maryland at College Park, where I still teach for the Department of Criminology and Criminal Justice. In my 30 years with the government, a good deal of those years was in Polygraph, and I'll be talking to you a little bit about that today. My last 3-year assignment before retiring was chief of Polygraph, where I had approximately 85 polygraph examiners that worked with me, conducting approximately 10,000 polygraph examinations a year. We'll talk a little bit about that. I'm also certified as a forensic hypnotist. I am the host of the ForensicWeek.com weekly webcast show that is very similar to what this web series is all about, to bringing information to students to have them better understand the career field and how to achieve success in going into various areas in the forensic sciences. I did my bachelor's work up in Boston, where I'm from, so you probably figured that out. I'm saying it right. You're listening wrong if you're having any difficulty in understanding my accent. I went to Suffolk University in Boston and then moved down here in the Baltimore, Washington area, where I got my master's at George Washington University. With that, I'd like to introduce Heather and have her tell you a little bit about herself. Heather?
Thanks, Tom. I am a forensic researcher and practitioner with over 7 years of bench experience in human identification. I currently serve as the Assistant Director of the graduate program in Forensic Science at Arcadia University, where I teach forensic serology and DNA-related coursework. and serve as a private forensic biology consultant. I am currently the president of the Council of Forensic Science Educators, which is a membership organization for forensic science professors and instructors. I'm an NIJ-funded research scientist doing research in the areas of forensic proteomics and body fluid identification. I hold my bachelor's degree in biology from Bucknell University, located in Lewisburg, Pennsylvania. I hold a master's degree in forensic science from Arcadia University, and I'm a doctoral candidate expecting to finish up, fingers crossed, sometime next year.
Thank you, Heather. I appreciate that. And Heather and I are going to be sharing the load this evening. And as you can see, the general section is called general because it's the largest, it's the section with the largest number of sub-disciplines in it. We have 17 sub-disciplines that make up the 824 members presently that we have in the general sections. It would be impossible in this format to attempt to try to talk about all 17, but what we will be doing is talking about the ones that have an asterisk next to them. We'll talk a little bit about them, some more than others. We will periodically, I may present a discipline, define it, and then simply run through the slides. So if you want to go back and watch the recording, you can stop it, read the slides in more detail. Otherwise, we would never get through this, and we want to make sure that we're giving you content or information that will be helpful to you in this series. So I'm going to hand it off again to Heather, and we can talk about the big picture. What is forensic science? Heather?
Forensic science in general is just science that's used in the public. This can be in the court or in the justice system. So pretty much any science that's used for the purposes of law is forensic science. That makes it very multidisciplinary by nature. It draws principally from chemistry and biology, but physics, geology, psychology, social sciences can all tie into different disciplines within the field of forensic science. The job of a forensic scientist is pretty much to analyze or identify and or classify any type of physical evidence relating to criminal or suspected cases of crime. That evidence then has to be tested in the lab, and records have to be prepared for each case. An expert would then have to go to courts and explain with their records their findings and any interpretations that they've made from those findings. So obviously with that, an aptitude for science and systematic investigation is required by any scientific expert that we talk about tonight. Somebody that would excel in this field would have an inquiring mind, a good sense of logic, curiosity, systematic work habits, detail-oriented. All of those things are essential for this field. For those that are interested in the field of forensics, they should be aware of the National Institute of Justice report. They put out a report entitled Qualifications for a Career in Forensic Science. And that report details the personal, professional, and academic criteria that influence prospective forensic scientist examiners' suitability for employment. So because we are so closely tied to the criminal justice system, a code of ethics is extremely important to any forensic practitioner. Things like looking at drug history use, criminal history, known personal associations, driving record, all of those types of things could influence whether or not you can find employment in the field. And then this ties in nicely to a lot of Tom's background, so I'm going to pass it back over to him, and he can go into that in a little bit more detail.
Great, thank you very much. You know, when Criminalistics did their webinar, and if you haven't seen it, you have to go there because they put a lot of time and effort in how to get the job, the interview process, how to prepare for the interview, and that was all great information. One area that I really think is important to talk about is what Heather just mentioned, and that is when you apply for a job in forensic science or in any aspect of the field, they're looking at you in two ways. They're certainly they're looking at do you have the skills to do the job? At the same time, do you meet certain criteria? A simple question: are you a person of trust and responsibility? And there are certain criteria that you have to meet. So if you are focused so much on your career and learning your career, and you're not looking at the mirror at yourself and to ensure that there is nothing that you're doing that may interfere with that, then that's a problem. I have found over the years that students just didn't think about it. By the time they thought about it, it was too late because the behavior was already part of their history. So we're going to talk a little bit about the security clearance process and what police do. Now, the federal government, if you're applying for a federal job, especially after 9/11, it will probably require some type of a clearance. Now, there's only 3 clearances in government: confidential, secret, and top secret. And what standard you must meet will depend on what kind of a level of clearance you're going to get and the agency. It's slightly different from agency to agency. Now, police departments, they also will look at you. They don't call it a clearance process. They call it a background investigation, where they, they'll do national agency checks and look at, etc. Some use polygraphs, some don't. But whatever the agency is, bottom line is there's going to be an investigation on you. And the biggest thing is that they're going to ask you to fill out a form that's going to ask you all these questions about you, your behavior, your background, your drinking habits. Have you had any DWIs? The standard Form 86 is the form the federal government uses. That form, you could finish filling it out, and it may end up to be almost 100 pages when you start filling in all the boxes. So it's a very complete form. All the law enforcement agencies have their own different forms, and they do it. Some do it better than others. But the bottom line is there'll be an investigation. In some cases, they might use a polygraph. And all this information, the investigation and the polygraph, all goes to the adjudication process. They're the people who look at you to see, do you meet that criteria? Now, you might be asking, okay, you keep talking about criteria, lifestyle, what does that mean? The adjudicative guidelines, again, they're different from agency to agency, from clearance to clearance. But these 13 separate adjudicative guidelines really hit all the types of things they're looking at, especially in the federal government: allegiance to the United States, foreign influence. Do you own foreign property, and does that, would you have any influence on your behavior or your allegiance to the United States? Foreign preference. You can certainly, you could be a citizen. You could have dual citizenship. But again, what are the other countries? Sexual behavior, personal conduct. Sexual behavior simply means something that would fall into the criminal, like child porn. Sexual behavior, that would be considered a violation by some statute. Now, any involvement in any of these by themselves doesn't make you disqualified, because they look at the whole person. But they are going to be looking at that. They're going to look at your personal conduct. If your lawyer says that any felony that you may have committed when you were a juvenile, if that has been expunged, your lawyer is going to tell you don't even have to talk about it. Well, that's just not true. Bottom line is, if they're going to ask you, have you ever been arrested? And you need to discuss those things, because you're applying for a job that of trust and responsibility that requires that. Alcohol consumption. Can you drink alcohol? Of course you can. But how do you drink alcohol? Do you do it responsibly? Do you drive and drink? Maybe you never got arrested for it, but they may ask you, do you drive to drink to excess and drive a car? How often do you do that, etc. Drug involvement. Every agency has their different threshold on how use of illegal drugs or the abuse of legal drugs is something they're going to look at. Certain agencies, if you suggest that you ever use an illegal drug, they're not going to hire you. Usually those are the smaller departments. Interesting enough, the bigger departments in the federal government look at that more leniently, and they recognize that everybody does things that they wish they didn't, wish they could change. So, but some agencies may say if you've done any illegal drugs in the last 3 years, you cannot be hired. FBI is one of them. All right. Other agencies, it's 1 year. So again, you need to be looking at that. We're certainly not sitting here trying to judge people for being involved in any of these things, but I will say to you, you will be judged by a potential employer. Psychological conditions. You know, if you have been seeing a psychiatrist or psychologist for whatever reason, that's okay. But what is it? What's the extent? Is it controlled? Are you under medication? Do you take it? And all those things. Criminal conduct, again, in itself is not disqualifying, but what is it? There's certainly, obviously, certain crimes that are disqualifying, like, you know, rape, murder, mayhem, you know, things like that. The last three have to do, especially in the counterintelligence, improperly handling protected or classified information in outside activities, outside influences that you may have, and obviously the use of information technology systems. So I just want to bring this to your attention that you need to consider these things. And right now, if you're ready to go into the business and you're wondering, is something in your background something I need to be concerned about, or how do I deal with that? Again, you're certainly willing to. I'm certainly willing to talk to you about those things, but you might need to, you know, discuss that with your mentors. So, because I find some people get worried about things that they shouldn't even be worried about. So these are the general areas that we thought would be important for you to talk about. That leads into the polygraph. We're going to talk about polygraph mainly because, again, you might have to take one, but more importantly, the polygraph as a career. And nowadays we call a polygraph the polygraph process credibility assessment analysis. I've never been comfortable with that term, but that's the term that's being used, especially in the federal government. So let's talk a little bit about that, because I know my students in my 36 years, I always have criminal justice students who are, you know, because they don't have that science background, but they're interested in some aspect of forensics. So they say, I'd love to be a polygraph examiner. Well, you don't get hired as a polygraph examiner. What you do is you get hired as an investigator. In fact, if you belong to a state that has a licensing of polygraph examiners, they may require you to be an investigator for at least 2 to 3 years. The federal government requires, I think it's it's either 2 or 3 years in the federal government. That can be waived in certain circumstances. So we're talking about doing interviews and examinations for purposes of truth verification. And as I mentioned, different states have licensing. A lot of them don't. Federal examiners are required to be certified by the National Credibility Assessment Center. So you could be a polygraph examiner for 20 years for a police department somewhere, and you decide you retire and you want to get hired by the federal government to be an examiner. You will have to go to the federal National Credibility Assessment Center and go through the whole 13 weeks of training like you never were one before. Again, that's the procedures, so you need to know that. The American Polygraph Association is the agency that has established the standards in standards for training, and the federal government also abides by those. There is no college degree in polygraph. Certainly, a lot of people who are interested in it have degrees in psychology or criminal justice, etc. Argosy University, the American School of Professional Psychology in Virginia, does have a master's in forensic psychology and forensic psychophysiology. So the term forensic psychophysiology is associated with polygraph examination. The training in the federal government is about 13 weeks. In fact, the American Polygraph Association's training is just about that too. So it's about 13 weeks of training, and after that, a minimum of 80 hours of biennial continuous training. there is a quality control and mentoring program throughout your career as a polygraph examiner. Some federal agencies try to get people into polygraph, train them, make that investment, and try to get them to stay there their whole career. Other agencies, it's an assignment. You'll do it for 3 to 5 years, and then you'll move on to other things. If you want to learn more about Polygraph, the American Polygraph Association, the American Association of Police Polygraphists, a difficult word to say sometimes. Those are the two largest organizations in the United States that represent the polygraph examiners, not only in the police departments, but even in the federal areas. And certainly, I have a lot at Forensic IQ on my website. We talk a lot about the types of services, etc. So it's a great career, and let me tell you, you get trained as a federal polygraph examiner, you will always have a job, because they can never find enough polygraph examiners in the federal government. I'll tell you, either they get burnt out, although I have found that in the agencies that make it a career, they incentivize the position where they make 15% or so more than their other colleagues, and it makes a difference. Forensic death and crime scene investigation discipline. Now this is one discipline in the general section, but it really talks about two different jobs. It's all about examining and documenting the crime scene and human bodies that are dead at the crime scenes, collecting evidence, etc. But it actually contains two different jobs. One is the evidence technician, or sometimes called a criminalist on the West Coast. They tend to use the word criminalist, evidence technician. Of course, if you're watching TV and CSI, crime scene investigator, but these are the folks who basically support the police department, collecting evidence at the crime scene to prove or disprove the crime occurred and that a certain person or persons committed it. Now, the other category in this area is the forensic investigator. They're employed by the medical examiner or the coroner in the jurisdiction in which they serve. They are the ones that respond to the scene, and their responsibility is the body. They are representing the medical examiner who's going to conduct potentially conduct an autopsy the next day. Their job is to record the body, to collect any evidence that associates with how it died, the manner, the cause, and time of death. So that's a forensic investigator. The larger police departments are creating their own crime scene units. Small ones, the investigators may do it themselves. The FBI has created their own crime scene unit in their major investigation section. They literally have the ability to be transported from state to state. Medical examiners employ sometimes they're called death investigators. Again, I like the term forensic investigators a little bit better, who respond to those scenes. So the forensic investigator, again, hired by and under the jurisdiction of the medical examiner, they either are a full-time employee. Some jurisdictions, like Maryland, in the state I'm in, we have a state medical examiner system. We have one medical examiner, about 12 or so assistant medical examiners who actually do the autopsies, but in every county in the state, the medical examiner hires contract forensic investigators part-time, and they respond on call. So and they represent their county, and they're paid to respond when they get a call. They do their investigation, photograph the body, write a report, and submit it to the medical examiner for the autopsies the next day. So I know a number of people who are former police officers, former EMTs, or present EMTs who are doctors who just want to do this as a part-time job in that area. But the medical examiner's office or the coroner's office, they also will hire full-time employees in this area. The crime scene investigator, for years, they were all commissioned police officers, but as forensic science grew in its popularity, etc., we found that having civilians specialize in this was a better thing to do. And 20 years ago, when the civilians were getting hired, they were looking at with people with any kind of a degree. A lot of criminal justice majors were getting those jobs. But then, again, the CSI effect took on a situation where a lot of students majoring in biology and chemistry that was interested in criminal investigations, they started applying to these jobs. So in most cases, and Heather, you can chime in on this if you've seen the same or different, most of these civilian positions are now they're being hired with degrees in chemistry and biology in forensic areas. Would you agree with that, Heather?
I think that's a fair statement to make.
Yeah. There is the International Association for Identification, IAI, that has an association with AAFS. They have a certification program for various steps for crime scene investigators. Some police agencies may use those certifications for promotions, etc. The person who provided me this information says the pros: job security and variety. Cons: 24 hours on call status and lack of advancement. I do want to mention, it's interesting that they mention that, because that's something I've always seen as a problem. In many cases, evidence technicians are being managed by commissioned police officers. And so there's really no upward mobility sometimes. So when you're looking for a job in this area, if you want to make it a long-term career, you're going to need to see how the structure of that agency is doing it. Are you managed by commissioned officers? And if you're not a commissioned officer, then that means you wouldn't be able to go up. So pay attention to that. Forensic geology discipline simply refers to forensic mineralogy, the study of evidence related to minerals, oil, petroleum, and other materials found in the earth. We're not going to talk about this, but I'm presenting this evidence. Soil, as an investigator, I always made sure that we collect soil from a suspect's shoes and made sure we collect soil from where the crime scene was. And I never really appreciated the significance of what that soil can tell us. And it's the forensic geologist, mineralogist who does that. So if you're interested in that, this slide gives you a little bit more information. And the next one, again, you can go back to the recorded version of this webinar, and you can stop it and read the slides and learn more. Forensic art and sculpturing discipline. Well, this is forensic artist, forensic imaging specialist, sketch artist, graphic specialist. These are the folks that do facial composites, facial reconstruction, post-mortem drawings of victims. This is not a job that you can teach in the academy. This is something that many times is a skill that is innately within these folks. They many times have degrees, or they've been an artist for a long time, and then they get interested in the investigative process in our career field, the forensic law enforcement type career field, and that's how they identify the interest. Certainly now there's a lot of software systems that help them, and a lot of technology that's involved in this. So again, if you're interested in this area, medical examiners may either hire or have contracts with these artists. There's not a whole lot of them. In many cases, large police departments will hire a forensic artist and let them out on loan to smaller agencies. So if you work for a large agency and there's smaller municipality departments in your area, you'll probably be doing some jobs for them also. So if you want to learn more about them, here's a couple of slides with some information. Again, I don't expect you to be reading the slides. I'm just going through them right now. So later on, you can go back and learn more. It's not that we're slighting any one discipline. It's simply in the interest of time. We want to make sure that we cover as much as we can to help you out. Forensic education and research discipline. I go to my partner in crime and corruption, Heather. All yours, Heather.
Thanks, Tom. A forensic science educator is really somebody whose primary job responsibility is to design and deliver forensic science curriculum, either to the college or university level. So this could be a full-time professor, which is the highest rank of somebody working as an educator in the field, or you could be an associate or an assistant professor, and that could be either on a tenured, which is a permanent hire track, or a non-tenured track, depending on your university. An adjunct is somebody that is teaching just a few courses and isn't delivering enough course material to be considered full-time at the university. They might still be working in the field and take on a few courses, and that's kind of their transition into maybe moving into academia more on a full-time basis. There's titles such as lab instructor. Those individuals help run more of the lab component courses instead of delivering the lecture-based course content for programs. Teaching assistants are people that are getting their graduate degrees in forensic science or a related area and cover lab classes or courses as they're completing that degree. The typical job responsibilities of somebody working in that field is pretty much to, again, design and teach any of that course content that might be appropriate for a program, to conduct and oversee either their own or student-based research projects related to the field. Working as a full-time educator, a large part of the job responsibility is going to be other types of administrative responsibilities as well, looking at student applicants for programs, and a large part having to do with advising of students, helping them get through their coursework and making sure they're making it through a program successfully, and also advising them on how they can do things like find the right research projects, find internships that they might be interested in, and find employment after they leave your program. Educators are working for any type of community college or four-year typical degree program, either at the college or university level. They can also be hired as consultants by different federal organizations as well. To get a job in the field of forensic science education, historically, a lot of people had worked in the field for a good portion of their career. Like I said, maybe started working, doing an adjunct work and teaching a few classes, and then transitioning into academia on a more full-time basis. Another option is to, like I said, start off as a teaching assistant, work maybe as a postdoc, and continue as an adjunct in some coursework, and then transition on to an assistant professor or an associate professor level at a university. To build your resume once you're working in the field, it's really important to have had some type of experience, whether that was through your education in forensic science or working in an actual forensic laboratory. And it's good practice to maintain contact with forensics labs in the communities, either on a consulting basis or what have you, once you are working full-time in the field. There are additional things just to point out. There's a lot of different institutions that you can look into if you are interested in research opportunities in the field of forensic science. There's a few listed on the screen here. The Forensic Institute for Research and Education, that one's located in Middle Tennessee State University. The Center for Education and Research in Forensics at the University of Texas in San Antonio, and the Center for Forensic Science Research and Education right here in Willow Grove, Pennsylvania. Again, if you look at any of their website content, you can find a lot of information about research-related activities in the field that they're involved in. Another thing to point out are these massive open online courses or MOOC courses in forensic science. These provide interactive formats and they offer courses. Stevenson University, for example, had a course recently on, so you think you're interested in being a forensic scientist. That was kind of a mini course to introduce people to the field and see if that was something they were definitely interested in pursuing study. Strathclyde University also had another course recently on the crime scene, and had a lot of interactive photos of the crime scene, and through that course you can go through and help solve different investigative leads in that investigation.
And Heather, let's not forget to tell them it's all free. All these massive open online courses are 100% free, run by these universities with their faculty for you. So you can sign up for these courses and really learn a lot, you know, without even stepping out of your bedroom.
Good point. If you are working in the field, or you're interested in working in the field of forensic science education, I did want to point out that organization that I mentioned earlier during my introduction, which is COFSE, the Council of Forensic Science Educators. Again, this is a membership organization made up of program directors and faculty from forensic science programs, anywhere from the high school on up to the college level, anyone that's involved in the delivery of forensic science education. And our mission is really to encourage communication between these educators and the exchange of ideas and research ideas and information regarding to curriculum design and content in the field of forensic science.
Okay, thank you, Heather. We're going to continue. And Jeff, could I ask you, so I know how far we can go before taking questions, are we starting to get questions yet, Jeff?
We haven't had any yet, no. So feel free to keep on going.
Okay, so good. We'll keep on going. Okay, very good. For firearms identification, there are two basic career fields here. One is the forensic technologist that gathers information from firearms, test fires firearms, screens the test fired cartridge cases under comparison microscopes. So basically, the forensic technologist assists the crime laboratory analyst. The crime laboratory analyst is the individual who does the comparisons, the one that would testify. Firearms identification is matching ammunition with the weapons or the firearms that fired that ammunition. Ballistics has to do with, when we talk about distance determination, testing, etc., ballistics is the study of the motion of the projectile as it leaves the gun and moves along and hits its target. Firearms identification is the comparison of the ammunition, the spent ammunition, with a particular gun to the exclusion of all others. A great field. A lot of the people who do this many times are retired police officers. They do their 20 years. They're certainly not done working, and because of their interest in their own training, they go into this particular field. So if you're interested in it, here's a little bit more information that I'm going to run through for you. I'm not going to read it to you, but you can go back and learn more about it. Forensic archaeology. Heather.
Forensic archaeology is defined, and it's not popping up on my screen. I'm not an archaeologist, but I was given good information by one. So
is it did it come up yet? Did it come up?
We're good. Yep.
Okay.
So this is just the application of archaeological methods and techniques to legal work. So anything from excavation techniques, documentation, recovery and preservation of evidence, and interpretation of depositional history. So that's just what happens at that site. So essentially, they are a crime scene investigator, and this is where they diverge from the field of forensic anthropology. So the anthropologist is specifically interested in human remains in the form of human bone, whereas the forensic archaeologist is interested in all the remains of the human activity that took place at that site. So the body is just one piece of many different types of evidence that they might be interested in or might recover. So typical job responsibilities, you can see listed there. All of those activities, searching for human remains, development of search and recovery protocols, they could be related to either domestic individual homicide cases or mass grave excavation, cases involving human rights violations. It could be buried remains, which you would traditionally think of, or more surface or scattered remains. It doesn't have to necessarily be human remains. You can have caches of weapons or drugs that were buried that they can help excavate as well.
Good?
Yeah, I think we're good. I think we're on to who they'd work for, and let's see. There's local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies. They tend to work for culture resource management as contract archaeologists. So they can work to excavate cemeteries that need to be moved, or they can be approached by police to aid in remains recovery. There are state and federal agencies that hire archaeologists. The Central Identification Lab, or JPAC, helps locate remains of ex-servicemen all over the world and repatriate them for identification so they can be returned to their families. Those individuals work in extreme environments that can be on top of glaciers, on top of cliffs where helicopters might have crashed, but it's really fascinating work that they're involved in. There are a number of international organizations, such as the Physicians for Human Rights, the International Red Cross, and a number of other organizations for missing persons. And finally, they can work for universities, so that would be either in a research or teaching role, and they potentially could be called out to consult in any of those other facets that I described as well. To get a job as a forensic archaeologist, you are first and foremost an archaeologist. So you would need an undergraduate degree in archaeology or anthropology with a specific archaeology concentration. You would need to have some type of excavation experience, either through field studies done at school or as a professional archaeologist. And then you need to do a master's program that can convert those skills to a forensic skill set. So understanding chain of custody, police protocols, courtroom testimony, expert witness report writing, all of those things would be learned at that master's level to apply that information. Once you're in the field, to build your resume, you really have to get your hands dirty and get out there and excavate. It's only through that process that you can really claim to be a forensic archaeologist. To keep your skill set relevant, you can do any type of professional development, either by participating in field activities or at schools, or whether it's joining professional organizations such as the Society for American Archaeology, the Registrar for Professional Archaeologists, and that organization really validates you as a professional archaeologist in the field, or through a group like the American Academy of Forensic Sciences. There's a number of other organizations that are out there doing good work. There's the Netherlands Forensic Institute, which has 2 full-time forensic archaeologists that really get called out to do all types of crime scene investigation and lend their documentation skills to those investigations. And the Institute for Forensic Archaeology in the UK, who has a special interest group that's made up of leading people in the field, and they've produced an excellent document for best practices in this field. And if you're interested, we can send you that link during the question and answer period.
Very good. Thank you, Heather. Let's move on to forensic nursing. That's yours also.
Forensic nursing. These are individuals, again, who are first and foremost nurses. So these are people that have a undergraduate degree or BN in nursing. They are trained both as nurses and as individuals that can provide counseling or emotional support for individuals that have undergone some type of assault or sexual assault. So they're there to help not only in the proper collection of any type of physical evidence that might be remaining on an individual's clothing or their body, but also, again, provide them that emotional support through the process and make sure they're really getting out of that person the right amount of information to help with any investigative leads in that particular case. They are working for hospitals, law enforcement agencies, different legal entities, and colleges and universities. Can you skip to the next slide?
It's coming.
Slowly but surely on my end.
Is it there?
Yeah, pretty much. So this just goes over how to prepare for a career in forensic nursing. Again, you can go back and read some of this content later if you're more interested in this particular field. But as I said, you do have to be a registered nurse. So you do need that bachelor's degree in nursing. It's also beneficial to, at some point, attain a master's in forensic nursing, and depending on where you're working, potentially get a certificate related specifically to forensic nursing. A lot of times these are 40 or 80-hour certificate programs that you would undertake. Next slide, Tom.
It's coming.
Again, if you're working in the field or interested, a good membership organization to look up is the International Association of Forensic Nurses. This is another membership organization for individuals to really provide leadership in the field of forensic nursing and to really promote the development and best practices of that field. Turn it back over to you.
Let me just say a little thing about the International Association of Forensic Nurses. I had them on my show this past year, and it's amazing how many people are in nursing school and aren't even aware of this job area in the nursing profession. So if you are a nurse or thinking about being a nurse, and you're also interested in the forensic field, then you got to get a hold of the International Association of Forensic Nurses, or members of our general section also, who are forensic nurses, and learn more about it. They get into all areas, and it's worldwide now. I had nurses from Australia, Canada, and different parts of the country who were on the show and talked, and they're great people, and they've taken over the role that medical doctors did, especially in sex crimes, the medical legal examinations done at the hospitals. Doctors did them hurriedly sometimes because they, but now the sane nurses are doing it. They're trained in it. They're focused on it. It's important to them, and important to develop themselves to do it better all the time. So I think it's a great program. Great program. Forensic veterinary science. This is very interesting. When we talk about this discipline, we're talking about a lot of things, from animal nutrition, animal medicine, animal production, genetics, behavior, pathology, physiology, husbandry, biochemistry, and animal welfare. We have a wonderful member of the general section, Dr. Gary Pozzillo, who is a colleague and a friend, and he is one of very few forensic animal nutritionists out there, and he's the one that provided these slides for us, and I want to thank him for that. It's a unique combination of all these activities involved in the raising, care, feeding, housing, and even training of all types of animals. The types of jobs that the forensic veterinary science area does is obviously animal cruelty investigation of pets, production, livestock, and horses. It was interesting talking to Dr. Pozzillo of a racehorse when the racehorse isn't winning anymore, and they've insured the racehorse for hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it's not winning anymore. Sometimes they would literally cause the death of the horse by doing something, and the next morning they'd find the horse dead. And it was really, you can't call a medical examiner for an unexpected death of a horse. This was an area untouched for many, many years. but now people like Dr. Gary Pizzillo and his colleagues in the forensic veterinary science area are focused on this. They're recognizing it. They're making people aware, making jurisdictions in law enforcement aware. Animal forensic nutrition, that is making sure that the feed that animals use, especially in the farm countries around the country, this is really important. Dr. Pizzillo, he was on my show, and he said, I just finished doing autopsies on over 350 hogs. This one farm had 350 of their animals die, and he didn't know why. And obviously this was financially burdening this farmer. So someone like a forensic veterinary scientist will come in and conduct an investigation and look at that. And obviously the food is part of that process. So protecting the animal, the food that is being produced. Where was the food produced? How is it being produced? Interesting area, and a lot of interesting stuff to do. So if you are into this area of interest, and again, you want to balance that with forensic science, you've got to look into this more. I know Dr. Gary Pizzillo and other of his colleagues would be more than happy to mentor anybody interested in this. And I know Gary, our producer here, will ensure that everybody who has signed up or is a viewer of this will be able to get contact information as we go along. So that's the area of forensic veterinary science. A whole lot of information. In fact, Gary gave me like 45 slides of fascinating information, and we can certainly provide that with you. I'm looking at the time, it's 7:52. Let me just say before we formally go to questions that www.forensicweek.com is the show that I host with students from George Washington University's Forensic Science Program, Stevenson University's Forensic Science Program. Those are my producers, and also interns from the University of Maryland. Our show is weekly. In every week, we take a different forensic science discipline. We invite scientists from that area to not only talk about the field in the cases that they've done, but also they focus on mentoring people who are just maybe interested in going into the field. So we talk about what they should do in high school, what they should major in college, what universities focus on that. So on this slide, we've got 40. Tomorrow night we'll have 42 episodes. These particular episodes were done by members not only of the general section, but from all other sections also of the American Academy of Forensic Sciences. From anthropology, pathology, forensic chemistry, the polygraph, forensic expert witness, several forensic scientists came in who've done expert testimony in courts hundreds of times. How do you do that? How do you prepare for that? Forensic nurses, as I said, animal and agricultural forensic science, that was Dr. Pizzillo. Death investigation, not only did I have a forensic pathologist, but also 2 retired homicide investigators. Forensic accounting. Many forensic accountants are private investigators working for insurance companies, etc. The security process, the massive open online courses. So if you want to know even more than we presented here or any of the other webinars presented, if you want to get a little bit more detail, just go to www.forensicweek.com. All the shows are archived there, and you can see them at your convenience. I want to thank the following members from the general section that provided information for Heather and myself. We certainly couldn't have done it alone. We have our own areas of expertise, but we were privileged to help present some information. And these are our colleagues that provided that information. So I want to thank each and every one of them. Well, here we are. It's 7:55, and we are at a question and answers. And I guess I'll turn it over to Jeff to tell us whether do we have any questions or should we start winding up?
Yeah, we actually do have a few questions that have come in. One is, what education do you need to go through to become a forensic firearm identification tech? Do you have to be a police officer in order to do this?
You want me to hit that, Heather?
Sure.
Yeah. Well, a lot of firearms experts have chemistry, biology background. You certainly, not only do you not need to be a police officer, that's few and far between. I mentioned when we got to that point is that sometimes there are some police officers, after they're done with their 20 years of on-the-street work, they're interested in that area of expertise, and they go into that. But you know, if you're interested in any area of forensic science, you can't go wrong making sure you have a good, strong foundation in chemistry and biology, and that will certainly help you and do that. And you need to be looking at having some knowledge in the area of firearms and understanding them, etc. And then you'll get a lot of on-the-job training when that happens. I've had students who did their internships at various local crime laboratories here in the Washington area. And during their internship, they showed an interest. The laboratory showed an interest in them, and then when they graduated, they got hired. I saw that in question documents. I had two students who were actually criminal justice majors, and they actually did internships there, and they are now certified forensic question document examiners for Homeland Security. In fact, the two that I'm thinking of.
Yeah, I would second that. I think historically a lot of the firearms investigators were police officers that specifically moved into that towards the end of their career in particular. But now you're seeing a lot more that individuals are hired into those positions with either bachelor's or master's degrees in any of the natural sciences, so chemistry, biology, forensic science. I know two students that recently got hired and trained in that type of position. One had an undergraduate degree in forensic science, and one had an undergraduate degree in chemistry, and are doing firearms examination. And like Tom said, there's going to be a lot of on-the-job training for that, to apply that natural science background to what you need to know to be a firearms investigator. But it does help to be familiar with firearms, and there's a number of hours that you have to spend per week to stay qualified at the shooting range, things like that you should be aware of as well.
Very good.
Great.
Jeff,
Thanks.
you got another?
Yeah. Heather, you said you were working in the field of serology and DNA. This is something I'm very interested in. What kind of category of forensic science would you classify this as, and could you speak a little bit more about that?
Serology and DNA analysis both fall under the field of forensic biology, which would fit under the criminalistic section within the field of the American Academy of Forensic Sciences. And what was the other part of that question, Jeff?
It was just what categories this classified as, but I didn't know if you could speak a little bit more about what that means.
Sure. So forensic serology is really any type of body fluid identification. So when you get in particular items of evidence and it has some type of stain on it, you would have to identify if that is biological in origin. So you're looking for things like blood, semen, saliva, urine, feces. It's very glamorous. And then hopefully you are identifying stains of biological origin to be able to collect samples for DNA analysis to be able to determine who that stain originated from.
Great, thanks. So is it possible to achieve a position as a forensic investigator in crime and death investigation with a degree in chemistry? What would you recommend as a future path in order to achieve this?
Tom, do you have that one?
Yeah, well, answer your question, yes. Is it possible with chemistry? Absolutely. And it depends on what type of system is in your jurisdiction, whether it's a coroner system or a medical examiner system, and whether it's a regional medical examiner system or a state medical examiner system. By that, I mean, for example, Maryland is a state medical examiner system. There's only one office in Baltimore, and so all the forensic, full-time forensic investigators all work in one place. The rest of the state only has those part-timers. If you're in a state that has county medical examiner systems are regional, then you have a better chance for those kinds of positions. I do know that some of the forensic investigators that I know of, worked on, they were volunteers, working EMTs, working in ambulances. They also have some type of medical training. Nurses tend to like to do it. And a lot of doctors in all different fields tend to be interested in a part-time way, of course. But for full-time, a degree in criminal justice would be okay, but you do need to have, again, you got to have a foundation. I would even tell my criminal justice majors who don't do this many times, they really need to take some chemistry and biology courses that criminal justice students who work on the other side, the opposite side of the brain than the physical scientists tend to shy away from. But they have to have that good background. So the job opportunities will depend on where they live.
Great. Just lost the question I was looking at. So I have a person here who says they come from Canada, and they were wondering if you can speak about which universities and educational facilities they should apply to, or maybe even if you can talk about are we only talking about the US here, or are we talking about an international spectrum of careers?
Well, the American Academy of Forensic Science is an international organization, so certainly this isn't just about the United States. I got to be honest with you, my knowledge doesn't really go beyond that in what specific universities. Maybe, Heather, can you tackle that?
I know here in the U.S. we do have a group that accredits forensic science universities, that's FEPAC. And there is an accredited university in Canada, Laurentian University, that offers a master's level degree specifically in the field of forensic science. So if she's looking for a university, that would be a great one to start with. And a lot of the fields and specialties that we talked about tonight are fields that are available in both the United States as well as Canada.
Good.
Great. So how can you figure out if a certain university's program is acclaimed enough to secure a job in a forensic science, in the forensic science field?
I would say a great place to start with that is to look at that organization, FEPAC, that I mentioned. You can find, there's a link to their group from the American Academy of Forensic Sciences website, and they recognize those universities both at the undergraduate and graduate level that have programs that ensure that their students will be qualified for a career in forensic sciences. Aside from that, that's not to say they're the only good options out there available if you're interested in studying forensic science. You would really want to look at the course content of any program that you're potentially interested in. Again, since a lot of forensic science does involve natural sciences, you would want to make sure that there is a number of chemistry and biology underpinnings in that curriculum to make sure that you would be employable in the field. And if you know a particular area of forensic science that you're interested in, I would search on the internet about that particular career to see if there are specific course requirements that would be required. As a biologist, I could tell you that if you were interested in going that route, you would need to make sure you had very specific coursework, statistics, genetics, molecular biology, biochemistry, to be employable within the field. So those types of things are things you would want to research and consider as well.
I'd like to discuss a little in that area. We're given the impression possibly that, if you want to be a forensic scientist, that you need to find a forensic science program, and that's not necessarily the case. For example, at University of Maryland, College Park, we don't have a forensic science department. We have the criminal justice department that teaches forensic science. But if I have students come to me and and they're interested in being a forensic chemist or a forensic biologist, and they say, but I'm here at the University of Maryland, what should I do? Major in chemistry or biology. Take some courses from the criminal justice department to add it. Remember, what is forensic science? It's law and science put together so when you're analyzing something in the laboratory, you recognize the significance of it for the law profession. Know how to present it. That's what it's all about. So don't feel that you have to find a program that has the word forensic science on it, especially in the undergraduate. In fact, there were no undergraduate forensic science programs up to recently. They're popping up all over the place now. But it's about, if you want to be a good forensic chemist, you need to know chemistry. You want to be a good forensic biologist, you need to know biology. The rest of it can come with other training, taking courses like Stevenson University with these, I hate that acronym, MOOCs, whatever it is, that are free. So there's a lot of opportunities. So I just wanted to share that.
Good point.
So
Jeff,
I have a question of what kind of positions can you obtain with just a bachelor's degree? And do you have to, or is grad school work required for obtaining a position in forensic sciences?
A lot of the entry-level positions in the field within a crime laboratory that you're looking at, so whether it's as a forensic chemist or a biologist or any of those types of positions, no, you don't need a master's degree to get any of those positions. The minimum requirements in a lot of the job descriptions there are that you have a bachelor's degree in any of the natural sciences or forensic science or a related field. That being said, I think that the field is a lot more popular nowadays than it was maybe in the past, and that it is a little bit more difficult to attain one of those positions, and it certainly is helpful to have the master's degree to be a little bit more competitive in the job market. But Tom, you might have a different take on that.
Yeah, after 36 years teaching, let me just say that when I finished my graduate work in the 70s, there were very few of us who even had a graduate degree, especially in forensic science, because it was all new. But today, it's all about, if you're trying to seek a job, I don't care what the job is, you got to decide, okay, I'm going to compete with other people. What are they going to have that I have? What are they going to have that I don't have? And I guarantee you today, it's 2013, if you don't have a graduate degree, it's going to be really difficult to get the kind of position that you really want. So I would strongly suggest to you that if this is what you want, just get to college and then start looking at what area of expertise you want and just continue and just do it. Do it as quick as you can. I just think it will make a difference. Not to say you couldn't find one with a bachelor's degree. I just told you about two of my students who are now who are question document examiners for Homeland Security. Both of them do not have master's degrees. But what they did have is internships. They went and did an internship their senior year in college, and they got loved by the people they were working for. And they asked them to apply. They asked them to apply. So that's the power of an internship.
Great. I think that's some great advice. So how can you become a member of the general section of AAFS?
You have to suck in oxygen on a regular basis first. Okay. If you are a scientist, then you have to apply, and I think you have to have 2 members sponsor you. Is that correct, Heather?
It depends on what level of membership you're talking about. We have student affiliates, trainee affiliates, associate members. To be just a student affiliate of the general section, you pretty much need to be in a forensic science program at the undergraduate or graduate level, and interested in one of the career options contained within the general section. And all you would need at that point is a letter from any of your instructors or advisor indicating you're a full-time student, and that would qualify you for a position as a student affiliate in the general section. I think to move to associate member, you do need the 2 letters of recommendation that Tom was talking about. I think at least one of those members has to be from the general section, and the other just has to be another member within the American Academy of Forensic Sciences.
Great. So do you have to be a member of the AAFS in order to attend the annual meeting? And what type of activities are there for young scientists there?
Well, first of all, you don't have to be a member, because I know that because there's a non-member fee that's different than a member. So
yeah, you pay more, but you can still go.
Yeah, you can pay more, you still go. And what was the second part of the question?
Do you know what type of activities are there for young scientists?
Oh, there's a group within the American Academy of Forensic Sciences called the Young Forensic Scientists Forum, and they put on a number of different activities. They have their own poster session where students that are recent graduates or new to the field or are interested in the field can go and see research that's being conducted by new forensic scientists. They also hold talks and seminars on how to build your resume or CV and techniques that would be appropriate for an interview and that type of thing for attaining a job within the field.
Great. I'm about to graduate with a bachelor's degree in forensic biology, but due to health reasons, I wasn't able to obtain an internship. What do you recommend to do to get yourself out there?
Join AAFS.
That is a great recommendation. Especially attending the annual meeting is, not that I'm not trying to push that, but it's a great opportunity for networking. I mean, there's thousands of forensic scientists there, all presenting different research, and they're all sharing common interests. So it's a great way to meet people that potentially know of positions that are going to be made available in that particular field. There's also a large career fair that they hold at the Academy meeting. So you can see kind of what jobs are available that way and practice potentially interviewing on any on-site interviews that might be conducted. Outside of that, I'd say just looking up any different local and state labs in your area and continually watching their websites to see when they're going to be offering tests. A lot of times you'll have to sit for these state labs for a test to be considered for a potential applicant to come in and interview for a position. So those are always great things that you would want to be watching. And just because you don't have an internship doesn't necessarily mean that you can't get a position within the field. It's helpful, but not a requirement.
Mm-hmm. Great. Well, it looks like I've gotten through all the questions that have been asked so far. You know, if we can stall here for a minute or two, if there's anything that you guys would like to say to wrap up, then...
Yeah, I'd like to say a couple of things. There's 2 things that I think are really important that I see missing. I've been teaching forensic science and criminal investigations for 36 years without stopping. I've taught every semester, including summer 1 and summer 2, for 36 years. Part-time, 2 courses a semester. So I've seen the same kinds of students teaching the same kind of curriculum. I've seen concerns that I think technology has caused it. People's critical thinking skills seem to be lacking somewhat, and I believe because we all have technology doing so much thinking for us. But a forensic scientist and an investigator, there is no software that's going to do that job for you. Being able to evaluate evidence, evaluate a criminal case and see how that evidence fits in requires significant critical thinking skills. So I would say to a college student, there are critical thinking courses being taught in all the universities. In fact, at University of Maryland, major companies went to the university and said, listen, you're sending us a lot of smart kids, but they can't think for themselves. They don't have good critical skills. University of Maryland, together with a bunch of universities across the country, took that to heart and now require, for the freshman class that started last year is now required to have credits in critical thinking. And the other thing I wanted to share is public speaking. Technology really has stopped everybody from talking. We want to text everybody. We want to email everybody. We don't want to look them straight in the eye and talk to them. Let me tell you, it doesn't matter what you do as a forensic scientist. If you can't communicate that effectively in a courtroom, it doesn't matter what you found. If you don't say it right, if you don't say it convincingly, and if you don't make those 12 people who weren't smart enough to get out of jury duty to believe what you say, then it won't matter. So 2 things, critical thinking and public speaking. Take the opportunity to take those courses. Either take them in school, go to it. Toastmasters International has organizations in every community in the country. But I strongly suggest, if you sit there and say, I don't like public speaking, then you got a problem. I don't care what you go into in life. You really need to do that. That's my 2 cents for the ending. Heather?
I think that's an excellent point. I'll just have to second that, but I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Well, I want to thank Heather, first of all, for helping me out here, and I certainly thank Alan Baum, who asked us to do this. We really appreciate it. We learned a lot by talking with our colleagues and getting all this information. Sometimes we don't know what our neighbors are doing, so this was a great opportunity. And the nice thing about these webinars is it's not over now. It's within 5 minutes after we're done, it'll be recorded and it'll be archived for you, for either you or your friends or colleagues to go to. And I strongly suggest you do that. I always suggest that you go to forensicweek.com and watch my show also, because we do what we can in the same light. So I want to thank Heather, Jeff, Dr. Logan for the opportunity. And with that, Jeff, I'll hand it back to you to close it out.
Great. I got one more that came in. And is it possible to obtain internships if you, being in the U.S., if you're an international student and not a citizen?
Yes, but not in the intelligence community. Well, yeah. Any job in the United States that requires any type of clearance, I want to make sure I'm saying this right. If you're an international student, I'm not sure. I don't want to. I'm thinking top secret. Probably yes, but they will be more limited. I'll say it that way. That there are certain positions that would require a certain level of clearance that if you were a non-U.S. citizen, you wouldn't be eligible. Police departments, police departments make their own rules, I would imagine, in reference to international students. Heather, would you agree? Or do you have any other comment on that?
Yeah, no, I think that there are going to be opportunities out there for you, but again, like Tom said, they might be somewhat limited depending on what background checks are required for that particular internship.
You can always go to private labs. Don't forget, there's a lot of forensic private labs out there that are doing a lot of good work, and you certainly wouldn't have that issue with them.
Great. Well, it looks like we have run out of questions again, so I want to wrap up and just say thank you so much, Tom and Heather, for coming and presenting. It's got a lot of good information here tonight. I want to push again that this is archived. If you go to aafs.org. Click on the resources tab and the videos. You'll find links there to the PowerPoint presentation as well as a link to the video for this section, as well as all the other webinars that we've had. So if you missed a section that you're interested in, or you're not going to be able to attend a future one, you can get that information there. Thank you everyone for coming out tonight, and thanks again, Tom and Heather.